Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Con Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. In a minute, I'll be joined by Nicki Jhabvala from the Washington Post as we discuss the rookies from over the weekend, little things that she picked up on just being around the rookies on Saturday. Not just about what you see in the field, but maybe with some things you learn about them just by observations, right? So I've told you in the past, like what you learn sometimes about guys, like what the biggest thing I remember from Jaden Daniels last year is not so much what he showed in the field, it's what his teammates were all saying about him, having just met the guy. That's what really jumped out to me and how much they loved being around the guy, how much they gravitated to him. And that's when you knew, oh, okay, there's something different with him beyond what we see on the field. So those are a lot of times the things you learn through these rookie sessions, even if you're out there just for a little bit. So we have OTAs coming up. We're not going to be at any OTA practices until May 28th. That's the first one we can go to. So we got a couple weeks in between then. We also have the schedule release this week. So the big schedule will be released on Wednesday. We'll find out how many primetime games there are, right? We know who they're playing, but just when and just how the schedule breaks, where are the tough stretches, and again, how many primetime games, and is there going to be a holiday game? And then also on Tuesday, we'll find out about we'll get the official word about Spain, wink, wink. So anyways, that'll be around 9 a.m. Tuesday Eastern time, by the way. So anyway, folks, that's it for me. Here's my conversation with Nicki Jhabvala from the Washington Post.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season, we're through the first month. It is in full swing. We're heading into the home stretch here for the NBA and the NHL playoffs as they have moved into their semifinal rounds. And BetOnline has more ways to stay in on all of the action. Latest odds, news, scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from MLB, NHL, UFC, BetOnline remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline. The game starts here.
All right, Nicki, so you're my eyes and ears for the rookie minicamp, and it sounds like it was a scintillating experience, like, an hour.
No idea.
Yeah. But it is like there are little things that you can pick up there. And like last year, when you have a quarterback, those rookie mini camps are a little bit different, right? Because there's just a lot to learn. There's excitement of the rookie quarterback and everybody's talking about him. A little bit different this year. How different was it this year compared to last year?
Yeah, so didn't get to see a whole lot. It was an hour on the field. It was a lot like watching warm-ups for an hour, which is fine. They can't do contact at this point in the offseason. There's not going to be a lot of live stuff. Dan Quinn said they wouldn't do any 11-on-11. They do like 7-on-7 at some point, but this is more about getting the rookies acclimated to the playbook and how they do things, how they operate, their expectations. And of course, they don't want to risk injury at these things. There's been too many instances of rookies getting hurt in rookie minicamp and then losing their first season. So they're right to be cautious. But in terms of what we can glean from that, I feel like anything you read online, frankly, is just an exaggeration of what is or was. We can see how these guys look physically.
Right.
That's very clear. We can see some of their quickness. They're going half speed though, so it's not totally clear. And we can see how they interact with each other. We can, for receivers, we can see how they move, how they shift. Same with the backs. So that's sort of the things that you're looking for, is just generally how do they work together.
Right. Kind of like being at Top Golf.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But so what were some, because again, like last year with Jaden, for example, one of the
Mhm.
big things I would, I know we would talk about, but like what teammates
Yeah,
said about him, right? Like
right,
that stood out to me as much as anything because, well, you're going to see the talent on the field because you saw it on film, right? And there's
right,
certain, and as a running back, like Ja'Cory, like there's only so much you can show as a running back
right,
without, with that all you can do because he runs so
right,
angry. Well, you can't run angry in rookie minicamp.
right.
So, but you see other things when you're talking to them, the way, like
Yeah,
you said, the way they move.
yeah,
So, what were with Josh Connolly? What was something that stood out to
yeah.
you with him?
Yeah, I would say first of all, this one was different because I think there was like inclement weather last year. So we were in the bubble
Right,
for the 2 days last year. So they would do some like half speed scrimmaging walkthrough. So we could see sort of, his reads, his decision making.
right,
There was none of that out there. This is you're divided up by positions and you're just kind of working with whoever else is out there in your position and your positional coach. So take, for instance, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who goes by Bill.
that's right.
Um,
Can you explain? I know he has a video out there saying, but
yeah, apparently, he was at one point bald, and somebody joked that he looked like Little Bill, who's a cartoon. And the name Bill stuck. So he now introduces himself as Bill. Um, Easy transition from Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill. So Bill, it was only him and one other back, and I believe it was a tryout guy. I think I don't forgive me for not knowing his name off the top of my head. But it was only two backs with working with Anthony Lynn. The offensive line, obviously, they have more guys. So there's again limited on what you can see. But back to Josh Connerly Jr. I think the thing that really stood out to me is more of his mannerisms. How
right,
does he approach media? How does he work with the positional coach? How does he interact with some of the other players? Um, you can see sort of that first step quickness. Again, it's going half speed, so you got to take what you see with a grain of salt. Um, and you see his size. To me, he looked a little bit small, but like nothing too like nothing concerning by any means. Is more just he has a baby face and they might want him to add a little bit of weight, but I know he's like what 310 listed
yeah,
already. So but he acts and sounds like a pro already. Which I'm clearly that's one of the reasons they liked him. It's one of the reasons they like Jaden is he,
right.
does not seem rattled or fazed by sort of the pressures or obligations of the role. So I think he's a very impressive kid. And I say kid because he is super young.
My
Um,
the reason I missed the rookie is because my son, who's the same age as Josh, was graduating. So it is funny because the older you get, like for each 1 year older, they look 5 years younger. It's just, you know what I mean? Like when
yeah,
I get one
yeah,
year older, they always look even younger than they did the year before. So it's kind of
yeah.
the
I'm
joys of getting older.
I'm like twice the age of people, and it's wild to me now. Like I don't feel that old, but I am old compared to these kids. Um,
What do you think?
but no, he's an impressive kid. I
Yeah.
know more about my age. I back to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I thought one of the things that really stood out to him was his size too.
Mhm.
He's a big dude. Like he is a muscular back. He's not, sort of this, you know, and he shows it. He's got that shiftiness. You could see a little bit of his blocking ability, which was good. And he said he understands he needs to be a complete back and realizes, there's always ways that he can improve, but he's working on it. Um, I thought Trey Amos he's interesting too, obviously, because they could view him as sort of their future at cornerback, the present and future at cornerback. He moves really well. Coaches seem to love him just based on the feedback he's getting. There is, the report from your website about the back injury that may have caused him to slip in the draft. He seemed to move okay, but again, half speed, not doing much, hard to really know for sure. Is everything fine? We'll see. And both him and Dan Quinn were, tried to shut down any notion of there being any issue, but we'll see ultimately as time goes on.
And it did, and just to interrupt for 1 minute
Well,
too, with his back, like it sounded like it was not every team that had the same report on him either. So like some teams seem to be
yeah,
comfortable with it.
right,
Cause like I always get this thing from one person before where they'll give me the red and the blue and the purple. And for the guys with injury designations or red flags, he didn't have anything on him. So I think that was
yeah,
it may have been a couple teams and that's all it takes for him to,
yeah.
so
And Dan
anyways.
Quinn, like I asked him, what made you feel comfortable? He said we were comfortable with
Yeah.
him. So clearly, so
So
um, yeah, no, all good. Jalen Lane, I dude's fast. I mean, we knew that coming in,
right.
but obviously it shows up. And he looked like a natural, and they did a couple punt returns, but just fielding them. They're not, running. Nothing is live. But he just looked natural catching the ball. Trying to think who else,
Cade
who's the who am I
Madrano.
missing?
Madrano.
Yeah, I actually admitted I didn't watch a whole lot of the linebackers, but we know he is fast, like, top of the pack fast for his position. I think the thing with him will be, can he develop? Can he get up to speed? I mean, they're good there for a year or so, but they definitely need depth at linebacker. So, um, yeah,
And it's funny because the way one of the things that when Quinn talked about the rookies before practice and just like without didn't want to look too far ahead. And it seemed like that's obviously his approach with everything, right? And
yeah,
I wonder, like, they're not worried yet about, well, talking about making the 53 or anything like that. It's only May, whatever, right? But I kind of like that approach where it feels like I think when they get with the veterans, that it would free them up to go out and play a certain way and not worry about making mistakes.
yeah. No, totally, totally. I mean, they push for competition, and you see it in subtle ways too. I think I heard a former Atlanta scout mention this, and I didn't put two and two together before. And I actually need to go back and look at the like off season roster. But I think Quinn likes to leave a couple roster spots open just to create competition. Guys know there's an opening or two. They know there's a job to get, so it creates this mindset of, you know, yeah, I'm hopeful, but it looks like every spot's locked up. No, flat out there are two spots that can be earned, which I think is kind of smart. So I mean, that's one of the things I am curious about too is, will they keep the full 90 going in? Will they always leave a spot open? And then like in the regular season, will they stick to like 52? I mean, I do believe last season there was a long stretch where they had like 52 at least.
Right. And I think even in camp, there were a couple of times they didn't have a
Yeah.
full 90 for
Yeah.
sure. So,
So
and yeah, and obviously the big news, I guess, if there was any news, was Gabe Taylor coming out of there and just getting able to
yep.
watch him, and obviously a major, major long shot. And but I
Yeah.
think it just sounds like it was um, bring him in, give him a shot, and then
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
everybody knows.
Yeah. And like he's an impressive kid just because of, he says he doesn't feel pressure. He doesn't listen to any I don't know that there are critics, but I guess any that feel he's
And I'm
not,
sure like natural comparisons,
good
like,
enough
well,
to
he's
get.
not this or that when Sean was
Sure.
this or that, right? But
Right, right. But I mean, whether he does or he doesn't, it's still a lot of pressure on him, especially coming back to the franchise where Sean Taylor's starred. But he handles it beautifully. So a lot of credit to him for, doing it. I clearly wanted to. I know his brother means a ton to him and his family, and I think it's awesome. But it is nonetheless a lot of pressure, and
the
he
one the
deserves.
one thing too, when you look at some of these guys, again, we're months from figuring this out, and things happen in the training camp. But you look at like Ja'Cory, for example, like if he does well, you got Brian Robinson, Eckler, McNichols, and Chris Rodriguez. And then it's
Yep.
like, okay, if they do well, do they keep, do you start, at what point do you start to wonder, like, well, who is this going to affect? And then it's impossible to know now. It's an off-season discussion.
Right.
And it's, nobody is, a lot of times those things play themselves out. but like, it's going to affect somebody in that room if he does well, which is what they want.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Yeah, no,
yeah,
definitely. And I
and
think at the very least, because they had what, 21 tryout players, like I want to say 10, 12 UDFAs. The guys that don't make it, they got a good look at you. They got 3 days with you. So if they don't end up signing somewhere, they know what you can or cannot do, and it could, raise the prospect of signing closer to the season, depending on how the roster shakes up.
and
Um, so you never
with
know.
with running back, how would you assess that room now with the addition of, Jacory or Little Bill?
I mean, I think it's stronger with him, but to your point, stronger with whom exactly? Because he's not going to clear waivers.
No,
I don't think.
I think
I
he,
think people know what the talent. Yeah, I think people know the talent he is, and that getting him in the seventh was deemed a steal because of the eligibility issues in the NCAA. So who you losing in the running backs room? Could they keep four? I'm not seeing, especially with the addition of Debo, who is sort of that hybrid player.
right.
I just, yeah. So I don't know. I
And
don't know.
then it
Could
depends on,
he,
like, yeah,
the end of McNichols? Is it, might they cut Austin?
can't imagine that he's the third down guy.
You
I don't
know,
think I don't
he
know
is
that
a
they
third
have
guy,
anybody
but
really to
you
what's that? I don't
yeah,
know.
no, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you.
And
It'd be more like, can he stay healthy?
right, for sure. And
But I mean, I'm not putting this out there. They're not. I don't have no
no,
idea.
and
I'm
it's
not.
this
I
is
don't
an
care.
impossible thing to know at this point because
Yeah.
but you do wonder at some point, but listen, like this is what you want. You want to create a situation like, oh, could there be a tough cut at this position? And you don't always get, I
Exactly.
think receiver is going to be like that too, where somebody with at least, does Michael Gallup make it right now?
Right.
We're not going to get a chance to start seeing them until for a couple more weeks, but that's where it's like, that's another spot where do they have six all-stars? Well, no, nobody does, but you do have some
Right.
guys who could be interesting at the end of that receiver
Right.
roster, right?
And
And
that's
that,
where special teams will come in.
yeah,
Special team, can they clear waivers?
right.
That all has to be factored in.
And I think like if we're the running back, that's why I'd wonder about Jeremy McNichols. I like what he added last year, but is
Mhm.
he a guy that would clear waivers? That's who knows. And again, this is like we'll be talking about this again in July and then
Yeah.
probably August, and then right then they'll have final cuts. So we'll talk about it a couple more times. But so when you look at, obviously we keep talking about edge rusher. What
Hmm.
sense what is your sense of how they're approaching this? Because clearly there hasn't been the urgency to go do something right away.
Yeah. I mean, my sense just looking at it is they value the interior pressure more, and they feel confident that their edge guys could help create that, or could put their interior guys in that position. I still think they're going to add to that room. And now, like, is it going to be trading for a star like Trey Anderson? I don't know. I could see them, a couple waiver claims maybe. I know Lance Newmark said at the end of the draft that they've had discussions with
Sure.
some veterans and are considering that. Nothing's transpired yet. Um, but I could see them adding to that room to again create competition, depth, whatever. But yeah, they haven't brought in that marquee player on the edge, so they clearly like the group that they have. And again, it's I don't know that that group is better per se, but I think we've seen where they do have a defensive line where it's all first round picks, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
So, in some respects, maybe this is the right approach. Get guys who know the expectation, know their role, play their role well, and know how to like position their top pass rushers, which right now appears to be their interior guys. Um, so I don't know. I don't. It's hard for us to say it's a right or wrong approach because we've seen
Right.
higher caliber players and it just hasn't worked. So maybe this is right.
Would you, because obviously the three big names out there that to me would make you're going to add a situational pass rush, you got Von Miller, you got Jadeveon Clowney,
Yeah.
and you got Zadarius Smith. And I know,
Yeah.
like, as of a couple of days ago, they hadn't been. I mean, the guys like Matthew Judon, and Preston Smith, they hadn't been talking to at least as of several days ago, right? So,
Right.
do any of those like would those satisfy the cravings for that? I mean, they'd all be situational rushers, but
Right.
we're also looking in some cases.
Depends on the price, and it
Right,
depends on, do they feel like those guys sort of fit their culture, much
right,
as I hate that word. But, like Von Miller's been on nothing but really pricey contracts. He's getting older, he's had health issues. You don't expect him to get that again, but you know, how will he fit in as sort of that, specialist pass rusher mode? Same for the others. Is it, they
right.
have money to spend, but you don't want to, you know, just spend it for the sake of spending it. So, and I think the other thing you got to consider is how this roster was built. They have so many veterans on 1 year deals. What if one of these veterans wants a longer term deal? They're older, they've dealt with injury issues. Maybe the team will want to like reset in like on large scale, much like they had to this offseason, because they have so many guys on 1 year deals. So I think, and this is where I think Adam Peters is really good, is looking at not just this season, but 2-3 years down the road. How do you want to continually shape the roster so that's good for the long term?
And
I
that's
don't
what.
know if I answered your question.
No, no, no. But I think that's an important part, though, too. It is because I think that's one reason why Demarcus Lawrence isn't here, because he gets a multi-year
Yeah.
deal. They're not going to give him a multi-year deal, right? Because
Right.
I think that's smart. I like that approach. I wouldn't want to get tied to any sort of contract for someone in their early to mid 30s for too long, right?
Right.
Especially if it's a little bit more expensive.
Right. Right.
So I think that's probably more the approach. Last thing too, then, well, two more things. One will be on schedule because that's coming out. But with
Mhm.
Quinn and some of the stuff he talked about, how much more sense do you get like the comfortness or comfortability with what they have here? I don't know if it's confidence. What
Yeah.
sense did you get from just talking to them before the practice about where they're at compared to even a year ago?
Yeah, I think there is more comfort just in the process. I know he's a big process guy, so knowing the things that work didn't work, and especially getting, maybe like, he hasn't said this outright. He's an even keeled guy, so I don't know that he would feel it necessarily, but he talked so much about, the second go round as a head coach and the things he wanted to do, and he had this whole plan. Um, and I would imagine there's some relief on seeing that plan really work well. Because he did put a lot of thought into it, on things he would do differently if he got another chance as a head coach. A lot of them succeeded. I don't think he's blind to the fact that a big reason they had a lot of success is they have a really good quarterback. I'm sure that creates comfort and knowing
Yeah,
that position is up. Um, so yeah, he seemed comfortable before too.
true. That's
But
true.
I would imagine Jaden has a big
Well,
part of
and
that for
I mean,
everybody on staff.
but it's funny because like it's funny to always talk about this team and not say what are they going to do at quarterback? Was this, it's just like now it's all
Right,
right. They got their guy, and
right,
this is
right.
what it becomes. We're talking about right tackles and seventh round running backs. That's what happens when you have a really good quarterback.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I mean,
It's
it,
a luxury.
it's weird. It's still like you still have to kind of get used to talking about this. Like, and do you think Connolly would be more of a right tackle at this point? His body size and all that. He seems to
Yeah,
be.
they're not moving Larry
So,
McTunsell.
and they're
Yeah.
not move Laramie Tunsil, but put him inside instead of right tackle.
Oh, I think he's a tackle. I
Yeah, he
think he's
looks
a tackle.
and
Yeah. I
and
mean,
Brandon has a
who are you gonna put at tackle? I don't. I think he's more of a tackle than Brandon Coleman.
yeah. I think Brandon's got that guard. I think Brandon can be a really good guard. So
I do too. I do
so
too.
last thing. So this is coming out Tuesday morning, Monday night, Tuesday morning. We'll find out about Spain on Tuesday. Donde
I
está?
I I don't think it would be unreasonable to, maybe start packing for an international
Get your
trip
pass,
to
get your
Madrid.
passports
I mean,
ready.
I don't know for certain, but I think it's very highly likely, very possible.
It looks pretty good. Get your passport ready, just in case. We'll say,
Look it up. Yeah.
but it
I
is,
mean, I think this is, I mean, when I say this anytime something good happens to the franchise, but it's true. I mean, the fact that they haven't gotten an international game in 9 years is both an indictment on their past 24 years and their current state. I mean, it's a remarkable turnaround in 22 months. I mean, that 3 years ago, that was not a team the NFL wanted to showcase internationally. So now they have potentially a $3.7 billion stadium at the site that most fans wanted. They'll host the 2027 NFL draft and potentially be going overseas. That's quite the off-season haul.
yeah. And
So
then of
I
course,
think
then
that's an indication where this franchise is at.
correct. But it's funny because like for a while, it didn't look like this might happen. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think I
I
think,
thought it would, I thought it would definitely happen in this year or next year.
yeah.
But yeah, there was some belief that, yeah,
And,
maybe later.
and I think
But
that if they had, I'm going to guess if they had their druthers, you'd like to wait just one more year and like
yeah,
just kind of
but
get used to your stature. But the league has a great product now here that they want to sell. And this is a great product to sell.
I would rather be the road team going to Madrid
Yes. Yeah.
than wait and be the home team and lose home revenue.
Right.
So I think it's a fine setup for them.
Yeah, yes. I think it's great for them and it's great you're
Yeah,
right. It highlights where they're at with the rebuild of the franchise, the
yeah,
whole between the draft and all the stadium stuff. It's like it's just another part of that momentum. Of course, then the question with the schedule then
yeah,
becomes like, how many primetime games? Is there a holiday game?
right.
It's, I know like it's always tough to be away from family on holidays, but I know fans are going to look at the
Yeah,
you fans look at primetime games, right? Like, and I don't blame them. Like, that's what they're going to look at. And do you get that slot? Because it shows what the league thinks of you as a product.
right.
And there's been nothing worthy of some of those games for a while. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I'm not
It's,
gonna lie, I'm gonna miss those 1 p.m. kickoffs.
well, it is like,
Getting home for dinner was great.
it is harder to, yes, it's harder for me to make the 90-minute drive back to Berryville at 1 a.m., So if it's a 4 o'clock game, it's a night game, I'll just stay overnight. So that's
Media problems.
it's get some more Marriott points and like, yeah, it's the first. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. Like,
Yeah. So
the
good.
where it stinks is like if you're a Jets reporter a couple of years ago and you got all these primetime games and then and Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in the first game, then it's like now you have a bad product for Monday night games. Like, so you don't want that. You
Well,
don't want that. Like, I'll take this. This will be
totally.
this will be a lot of fun. But and hopefully, Spain comes through. So that will be fun to go over there as well. So anyway, hola.
That's great.
That's
Is that all you know?
that's all I know. Listen, there was one time when years ago, I was doing some Nat stuff in the off season. I'm like, it'd probably be good for me to learn some Spanish. And I took Spanish in college, but my Spanish in
I
college
still
sounded too
only
much.
know hola.
No, I know Donde está el baño. I know that. So
I mean,
where is the bathroom? So, but that was the extent
that's
of
an
my,
important one to know.
well, it is. So, but when I was doing some Nat stuff in the off season, I'd ride down there and I'd be playing these tapes in Spanish down there and I'd learn the stuff. You memorize it, but you're not using it. And then you get in a situation where could you try it out? And all I could think of is Dante style baño. That's all I can remember. So it didn't help me much. So if they go to Madrid, if you hang around with me at all, we may need a translator with us because I can't handle it. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, I hear Dan Quinn knows some Spanish now, so that's
you
good.
did. Thanks to your question. Yeah, that was great.
Do what I
All right.
can. Yeah.
There you go. Nikki, thanks a lot. I appreciate it as always. You got anything
Sorry.
you need to plug?
Nope.
All right.
Maybe no, I may have a couple stories this week. So if you wouldn't mind reading the Washington Post and keeping me employed, that'd be fantastic.
Do Nicki a favor. WashingtonPost.com. Thanks, Nicki.
Of course.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Nicki for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on Thursday with another episode. So I'll talk to you next time.